Coming up on The World Today, Biden Inauguration preparations are underway for the inauguration of Joe Biden, with heightened security reported in the U.S. Capitol. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte faces crucial Senate votes to stay in power. Uganda accuses the U.S. envoy of subversion for trying to visit opposition candidate Bobi Wine. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us on The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani in Lagos. We're counting hours now to Joe Biden's inauguration as America's 46th president. Across the U.S. Capitol today are barricades and the National Guard deployed to keep the peace and prevent violent protests. The president-elect sounds ready to hit the ground running. He's announced he will be undoing one of President Trump's last actions in office by blocking his decree lifting COVID travel bans on visitors from much of Europe and Brazil. This will be an inauguration like none other, as we know, as instead of thousands expected to attend, nearly 200,000 flags have been placed in the National Mall, representing Americans unable to attend the event. We'll have more on that later, but a lot of people are wondering what the outgoing president is doing today, his last day in office. And apart from preparing to leave the White House, we understand the president is planning to issue as many as 100 pardons and commutations. Among those expected to be pardoned today are rapper Lil Wayne and Sheldon Silver, former Speaker of the New York State Assembly. There have been rumors the president intends to pardon himself, his sons Eric and Don Jr., longtime ally Roger Stone, and his son-in-law's father, Charles Kushner.
Thousands of police officers and National Guard troops have been stationed throughout Washington, D.C. as workers set up metal fences and barriers around the White House and the Capitol building to avoid further possible violent clashes ahead of the inauguration. The security alert area delineated in the urban area has been completely blocked, and the fence of the block is high, and only those who hold inauguration passes are allowed to enter.
From the Democratic National Convention in August to the final days of the race in November,
in the meantime, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris says she and the President-elect Joe Biden are ready to get to work, even as she thanked supporters for their role in the campaign.
You did the work. You helped lay the groundwork for this historic occasion. And now, because of you and so many others like you, our country is on a path to heal and to rebuild. Of course, that doesn't mean the road ahead is going to be easy. Our nation continues to face challenges from the coronavirus pandemic to this economic recession, from our climate crisis to a long overdue reckoning with racial injustice, to healing and strengthening the democracy that we all cherish. But we are ready to get to work, and we are filled with a sense of purpose and hope.
56-year-old Harris made history becoming the first woman, first Black American, and first Asian American to win the second highest U.S. office. As the world counts down to the inauguration, the outgoing First Lady Melania Trump is also saying farewell to the nation.
In all circumstances, I ask every American to be an ambassador of Be Best, to focus on what unites us, to raise above what divides us, to always choose love over hatred, peace over violence, and others before yourself. Together, as one national family, we can continue to be the light of hope for future generations and carry on America's legacy of rising our nation to greater heights through our spirit of courage, goodness, and faith. No words can express the depth of my gratitude for the privilege of having served as your First Lady. To all the people of this country, you will be in my heart forever.
Melania Trump has reportedly not invited future First Lady Jill Biden for a walk-through of the private living quarters in the White House in what has become a tradition in transitions of power. Neither the First Lady nor President Donald Trump is expected to attend the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. In the meantime, nearly 200,000 U.S. flags fill up the grassy park in Washington, D.C., near the U.S. Capitol building. The Presidential Inauguration Committee says the Field of Flags installation is part of the America United theme that it has chosen for the inauguration. Biden and Harris will be sworn into office on January 20 on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Attendance for the event is already limited, with festivities largely virtual due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
We'll be having more on President Donald Trump's final days in a moment. But first, happening in Russia, the Kremlin says it will not heed calls by some Western countries for sanctions over the detention of Alexei Navalny, who was arrested on his return from Germany on Sunday, because his case, they say, is purely a domestic matter. The country's been facing international condemnation for Navalny's detention that the government says would last 30 days. Government spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters on a conference call today that this is about a Russian citizen not complying with Russian law. This is an absolutely domestic matter and we will not allow anyone interfere in it. He said Navalny had genuine questions to answer about violating his parole conditions for a suspended prison sentence. While UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is the way to put pressure on Russia over its arrest of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. He joins leaders around the world calling on Russian President Vladimir Putin to release Navalny as the case he's being charged for is politically motivated.
Speaker, the resumption of Congress and the certification of Joe Biden's victory on the 7th of January sent an essential message that the democratic will of the US people cannot be challenged by a violent minority. We made clear that the scenes by a small but ugly minority in Washington were disgraceful. We also made clear we had the full confidence in the system of checks and balances in the US to provide a definitive result and a smooth transition, and we look forward to working with the new administration. We are very concerned about Iran's continued systemic non-compliance with its nuclear commitments. We've made that clear with our E3 partners, including recently at the ministerial meeting of JCPOA. Also at the same time,
Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has today addressed the Italian Senate, hoping to win over enough opposition and unaligned lawmakers to keep him in office after a junior partner quit his coalition. He gave almost the same speech at the upper house as he had delivered on Monday to the Chamber of Deputies, where he won by a wider than expected margin of 321 votes to 259, securing an absolute majority. In the Senate, where the situation is much tighter, he added a comment about former Premier Matteo Renzi's frequent quarrels with his coalition partners before he walked out. Conte had only a slim majority in the 321-seat Senate even before Renzi withdrew his small centrist party Italia Viva from the government's ranks last week. We're staying with our leading story on the world today, and that's the inauguration of Joe Biden coming up in a few hours. Well, not a few hours, a lot of hours, almost 24 hours right now to January 20th. Our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird, has been keeping her eyes on the situation on the ground. Maria joins us now. Maria, great to see you. And a big day coming up tomorrow, but pre-inauguration preparations. Tell us all about them.
It is a real interesting time here in Washington, across the United States. Yesterday, I had the time to go down to that area, and to be very honest, you can barely see the Capitol. The blocking off of the streets downtown Washington are at a point where I've never seen this before, whether or not it was inauguration or any other time in Washington. You're blocks and blocks away from even getting close to the Capitol grounds. You see armored trucks riding through the streets of Washington. You also will see, a lot of military personnel walking the streets of Washington. There are individuals that, as they try to approach those gated areas to go through, they must have the appropriate credentials. And so there is very tight security throughout the city of Washington. And furthermore, we are even seeing that many of the bridges will be closed down to really secure the city as well. One of the major areas that the bridges will be closed down will even close off part of Washington Southeast Washington, most of that will be closed off from the downtown area because there are two bridges that connect that part of Washington to the area that's near the Capitol and the White House.
Yeah, that's a really massive area you're talking about, Maria, because I have had the opportunity of attending President Barack Obama's inauguration, and I know how far people had to walk just to get close enough to the Capitol building. A really tough situation there that day in the cold winter of January. So this time round, not a lot of people expected in the Capitol, but we understand flags representing over 200,000 people supposedly who've died from the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, if people are not allowed to come, who are the major visitors expected tomorrow?
Well, you'll have the entertainers, as we typically do have. I think at this time, Jennifer Lopez is one, Justin Timberlake is one, Lady Gaga is one. So you'll have the entertainers there. You will have the senators there. You will have Supreme Court justices there. You will have, obviously, the incoming president's cabinet there. And it's expected that Vice President Pence will be in attendance as well. And then you will have those, as people are very excited for the first time ever, Howard University's marching band will be there as Kamala Harris is brought forth. And so it is going to be, a very tight group, and pretty much only those individuals who will be a part of the inauguration festivities will actually be in attendance. And when I say a part of, I mean actually participating and having some sort of role within the inauguration.
President Trump just has a few hours to remain in the White House. Now, he's not intending to invite the incoming president to the White House, which will be tradition. Welcome him, take him around the White House, show him the ropes, answer any questions he may have. That was something President Barack Obama did with Donald Trump before he entered into the White House as a president. What's the president doing today, apart from, this information we have about him intending to pardon at least 100 people?
Well, they say that the president's schedule, as it's been for the last 6 days, pretty much says that he'll be in meetings and phone calls throughout the day, from morning to evening. The specifics of actually what he will be doing, they have not documented those. But as you said before, we're expecting many pardons to come through over the next couple of hours. At 11 o'clock, we typically hear from him. We have not heard yet, so we're expecting any time now to hear from him exactly who will be pardoned in his next steps. It is also expected that there will be a salute to him leaving out. He will leave before noon tomorrow, which means that he will still be technically the sitting president when he actually flies off in Air Force One and leaves the White House. He is expected to have a Army salute, and a lot of his close confidants will be in attendance at this event. But we also know that typically there's about a 5-hour period between the time of the president exiting the White House and the new president entering, and that is typically the time that things are changed around. But due to COVID, it is expected that President-elect Biden will actually be staying in a hotel until they can get the White House into a position that it has been cleaned and desanitized in a way that they can bring the new family in.
Maria, thanks for bringing us up to speed as we prepare, as the U.S. prepares for this historic day. Do stay safe. We know you'll be out there reporting for us from the grounds of the inauguration, so better get enough rest ahead.
Thank you for having me.
A lot of people wondering today what President Donald Trump is doing with his final hours in the White House before he leaves office and hands over, well, he won't be handing over, but before Joe Biden enters the White House or re-enters the White House, this time as president. Now, apart from preparing to leave, we understand that the president is planning to issue as many as 100 pardons and commutations. There have been rumors the president intends to pardon himself, his sons, Eric and Don Jr., and longtime ally Roger Stone, and his son-in-law's father, Charles Kushner.
President Trump, who waged a series of bitter battles after losing the presidential race to Democrats Joe Biden, goaded supporters to march on the U.S. Capitol to encourage lawmakers to overturn Biden's win in the November 3rd election.
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
With only days left in his presidency, the president, silenced by Twitter and shunned by a growing number of Republican officials, faced a renewed drive by Democrats to remove him from office after he incited his supporters to storm the U.S. Capitol. The House of Representatives impeached Trump for a historic second time after Vice President Mike Pence declined to submit to calls asking him to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office.
Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 200.
Meanwhile, Twitter permanently cut off President Trump's personal account and access to his nearly 90 million followers in early January, citing the risk of further incitement of violence. The assault on the U.S. Congress, viewed with shock around the world, left a police officer and 4 others dead in its wake, as rioters breached the Capitol and forced lawmakers into hiding for their own safety. President Trump spent months falsely claiming the election was stolen from him due to widespread fraud. Dozens of courts across the country have thrown out lawsuits challenging the results, and election officials from both parties have said there is no evidence to support his allegations.
It was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace.
Following the outrage that resulted from the attack on Congress, the president came as close as he could to a concession in a video statement in which he pledged to work towards a smooth transfer of power to the new administration and called the violence at the Capitol a heinous attack.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
In the meantime, a global pandemic that Trump was late to recognize and prone to downplay or outrightly deny through much of its course laid waste to the U.S. economy in the final year of his term. It also erased all semblance of the booming job market that he had hoped would vault him to a second term. As part of his final acts in office, President Trump has also issued a series of pardons to political allies and friends. He granted pardons to former campaign chairman Paul Manafort and former advisor Roger Stone, sweeping away the most important convictions under the long-running Russia election probe. Besides Manafort and Stone, Trump has pardoned 2 other major figures from the Russia probe, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. He also pardoned the father of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Charles Kushner, who was sentenced to 2 years in prison after pleading guilty in 2004 to 18 counts of tax evasion, witness tampering, and making unlawful campaign donations.
For another election now, observers from the United States did not monitor the presidential election in Uganda, but they're being accused by the government of seeking to subvert the election by trying to visit the main opposition candidate at his home, which has been surrounded by security forces since the vote. Troops prevented pop star turned legislator Bobi Wine from leaving his house shortly after he returned from voting on Thursday, in which he ran against incumbent Yoweri Museveni. On Tuesday, that's today, Wine said he and his wife had run out of food and milk for their 18-month-old niece. The U.S. Embassy said late on Monday that Ambassador Tally Brown had been stopped from visiting Wine, who it referred to by his real name, Robert Kyagulanyi, at his residence in a suburb in the northern outskirts of the capital. The mission said Brown wanted to check on his health and safety, given that he was effectively unable to leave his home.
We have filed an application for habeas corpus from election day, that was in the night of 14th. Honorable Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, together with his wife and people at his home, have been detained in their own home by security agencies, including officials of UPDF and Uganda Police Force. So in our communication with him on phone, we agreed that we filed for this application for habeas corpus so that he can be allowed to have and enjoy his liberty with his family. Right now we are before Justice Michael Erubu, and he has given us Thursday, 21st of January at 10 a.m. for the hearing of the application for habeas corpus. And I think when we were coming to file this application, we were informed by the security agencies that some of us, probably two of us, can access Kyagulanyi as lawyers, which we think we will not do as of now, because our preoccupation now is his personal liberty.
The 2021 electoral process has reduced Ugandans to helplessness, and the fear and the Museveni's action obviously seek to legitimize an illegal and a flawed electoral process.
And as we end the world today, northern lights were seen dancing in the skies over the snowy forests and rivers of Finnish land overnight from Monday into today. The local photographer who captured the lights in freezing temperatures of negative 25 degrees Celsius said they appeared at around 9 p.m. local time on Monday and only faded after 5 a.m. today. He says the most breathtaking moment happened around midnight when he was treated to a magnificent display of the lights, also known as Aurora Borealis, in the skies for half an hour. An absolute beauty. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.